Evangelism isn't just about words. It's about meeting people where they are. This week, we're exploring need-oriented evangelism, a powerful approach that connects the gospel to real-life struggles. How can the church move beyond preaching and truly serve? What happens when we meet people's deepest needs first? Let's dive into a conversation that could change the way we think about sharing our faith. Here on the Pastor's Potluck Podcast, our goal is to encourage you and maybe in the process, entertain you. If you're ready, let's dig in.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. We hope that you've enjoyed this conversation as much as we have, and just diving into natural church development, what that looks like as we talk through the 8 characteristics that define a healthy and thriving church. And today we are going to be talking about need-oriented evangelism. Yeah. And so the first question I wanted to ask you was, what is need-oriented evangelism? And how does that differ from traditional evangelism approaches?
Sure. So traditional evangelism, and when NCD is talking about evangelism, they're essentially talking about your missions and outreach strategy to your community. So how are you making a difference in your community? And the difference would be if you, because again, every church has evangelism on some level.
Yeah.
But need-based or need-oriented evangelism differentiates itself because it asks the question first and foremost, what are the needs of my community and how can I help meet them as a means of evangelism? Rather than if you don't have that similar strategy, you might go out and try to do things that you think are what we're supposed to be doing, or maybe what another church has done, but they don't work in your area because you didn't do the hard work up front of studying your area to find out what is unique about your area.
Yeah.
And so that's the difference. Need-based evangelism asks the question, what does my community need, not what do I want to do to help my community.
Yeah.
Those are different questions because so for you, this is a really stupid example, but off the top of my head.
I like dumb analogies.
You wear a hat every single day.
Yeah, except for Sundays. It
would be dumb of me to buy you a hat as if you needed one.
Yeah.
That's what most evangelism strategies look like.
Yeah.
They go, well, but that's what I want to buy you is a hat. So I buy you a hat and you go, well, you didn't appreciate the hat? No, because I don't need a hat. I have a hat. I'm wearing a hat every single day.
Yeah.
That's the same thing. Like so let me give you...
But not getting down to the reason why I'm wearing a hat.
Exactly.
Because most people don't ask that. They say, oh, you like hats. Let me get you a hat.
Because the better thing would be, what if I found out that I'm wearing a hat because I don't have shampoo at home?
No, I have...
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so my need is I have dry scalp.
Yeah.
And so it's
now,
a self-conscious
now I know your
thing.
need. Now, instead of buying you a hat that only covers up the problem, I can get to the root of the problem because I know what the problem is.
I like that
you
pun.
Like root?
Yeah, the root.
That's what needs-based evangelism is doing. It's going, where are the pain points in the areas surrounding me, and let me go help those issues.
Yeah.
Rather than just going, well, we're going to do this because I heard that Elevation Church did this. It's like, yeah, well, what Elevation did in Charlotte or any of their dozens of locations doesn't mean that they have the same sort of demographic as your community.
Yeah.
So the way that you can, because especially if you come from a smaller church, which the vast majority of churches, like we're talking 90% of churches anywhere, never reach 200 people.
Yeah.
So the vast majority of churches are small churches. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a degrading or demeaning thing. It's just a thing. Like it's just true. The vast majority of churches are small. So if you come from a small church, you can't do everything that a big church might do. Because if you try to do it, then you'll run yourself, your volunteers, and your finances into the ground.
Yeah.
So because you can't do unlimited ministry, because I mean, shoot, even large churches can't do unlimited ministries.
Yeah.
We have to find the areas where the impact will be the greatest and lead to the best outcome for the kingdom. So let me give you an example instead of just talking theoretical. Like we've done this here at Southridge Church. So
this may tie into what you're going to go into.
Okay, go ahead.
So how does a church begin to figure out those needs?
Yeah.
Because I think that's a big thing. And sometimes we kind of need like inspiration from someone who's done it to get an idea of how to approach that ourselves. Yeah. And so how does Southridge Church, I can't speak for anybody else, but how does Southridge begin to identify those needs? And I would imagine that's how you can tie into
get plugged into your community is how. So like we found out about the vast majority of needs in our community because of our 4 local partnerships with schools.
Yeah.
When you are plugged into a local school and give that school permission to call you and say, hey, we have a student here that has an issue. Once you've met those needs multiple times, they realize, all right, this is a church that I can go to. And actually, so we get plugged in through our local schools and just staying in tune with what's happening. There's actually more formalized ways that you can do it also.
Yeah.
There are demographic studies that you can do on your community. Like I, through my work with the State Church of God, the Church of God here in West Virginia actually has access to a database called Mission Insight, where I can actually run demographic studies surrounding our church and around any area in West Virginia that I want to find out. The church I'm working with in Southern West Virginia, I said, you all need to figure out what the biggest need in your community is that's not currently being met.
Yeah.
And this is where I was going a second ago. This is what we've done here at the church. Clearly, food insecurity is a big issue everywhere.
Yes.
But Bread of Life Food Pantry exists 1.5 miles away from us. I think most churches' evangelism strategy is, well, we got to have a food pantry.
Yeah.
I don't see it that way because that's a need that was already being met. But so I went down and met. This is actually when I was the associate pastor. Went down and met with the leadership of the Bread of Life Food Pantry. Find out they're doing a good work.
Yeah,
we don't need another food pantry 1.5 miles away from them.
No.
If we are interested in getting in the food pantry game, we need to pour fire on what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because it's not really about my church versus their church or anything else. It's about the kingdom. Whenever we're talking evangelism, when we're talking about missions and outreach, we're talking about the kingdom. So we didn't start a food pantry here, even though people wanted to start a food pantry here.
Yeah.
1.5 miles away from a very thriving food pantry.
Yeah.
But now that partnership has grown to where we run that food pantry every other Friday.
Yeah.
We have funded it in multiple ways in the past. But yeah, like we have at least a dozen volunteers, probably more, that go and run that thing every other week. We didn't need to go and start something new. We already knew the need.
Yeah.
And we found a place where God was blessing and went and got involved in it. Now, the inverse of that, we were plugged into a local school. And this actually happened also when I was the associate pastor. Plugged into a local school and found out that the 2 weeks that kids are not in school at Christmas time is a major difficulty on those low-income families that deal with food insecurity, because those kids are getting 2 hot meals a day at school. When they're gone for 14 days during Christmas break, they're going to homes that do not have food for them. So we found out about that. Now, the food pantry can't do anything about those kids for 14 days other than, well, you can, because at the food pantry there's rules.
Yeah, you can only go once a month.
They're getting federal funding and things like that. You can only go once a month.
Yeah.
So that was a need we found out about and said we can fix that. And now we're fixing it in 4 different schools. That's why we pack our Impact School boxes every single year, and it's 100 families, and 100 families at these local schools will get a box that the food should last them all 2 weeks. And we try to make the boxes big enough because a lot of times those families will have not just mom, dad, and kid. Normally grandparents are there, aunts and uncles might be living there.
Yeah, cousins,
so we try to make them substantial enough to where we try to take care of the whole family if at all possible. So we heard about a need and said, that's what we're going to do. We're going to get into that business of packing Christmas food boxes because that's a need that people have.
Yeah, it alleviates a lot of the financial strain of trying to figure out, okay, do I feed my family or do I buy Christmas gifts? Because there's no parent that's actually trying to make it and try to do well and right by their family doesn't want to be able to provide their kids with something to open on Christmas. And so it identifies one need and it helps them out, but it also opens up the doors for them to be able to meet the other needs that are during that time. Because I mean, it's amazing like what happens whenever a need is met and what other possibilities open up for these families to be able to do and accomplish.
Yeah, I would imagine since we started this, we fed over 1,000 families now with these boxes, because this was going on again when I was I'm pretty sure it started when I was the associate pastor. Yeah. So that goes back to like 2013. So we've been doing this for like 12 years now. Yeah. 100 families. It wasn't always 100 families. I don't think. Really, it started out at one school, 25 families. Yeah. And then it grew, and ever since I became the associate pastor and then into the lead pastor, it's grown to 4 schools. This is one of those things when I think about our For the Future campaign. Why do we want to be debt-free? Because I see in the future us being able to offer this for way more than 100 families. Yeah. Because we know that that's a need. We want to meet a need that we are aware of. Yeah. Here's another example of what this looks like. We know here in West Virginia, we got hit hard by the drug epidemic. Yeah. And so we know we needed to get involved in that. And ministry opportunity came about whenever one of our folks here at Southridge had been doing recovery ministry on their own for a while, wanted to know if the church wanted to get involved. Absolutely, we want to get involved. Yeah. Because we understand that's a need in our community. We're not just trying to do what we want to do. We want to do what our community needs. And so ministering to people in addiction recovery is one of those need-based things that we've done. So really, if you want to have an effective evangelism strategy, tie it to a need in your community that will then allow you to minister to those needs. And when you minister to someone's physical needs, then the door is open for you to minister to their spiritual needs.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. So it's like, how can we ensure that meeting people's needs leads to genuine faith rather than just doing social work? Yeah. And I think that this is probably where this may be the majority of what we talk about the remainder of this, because this opens up the ideas, the floodgates, and the importance of this characteristic of natural church development.
Okay, so I'll first say, so the idea of canvassing your neighborhood the way that they did back in the day, I don't think is I'm not going to sit here and like bag on it, because it did work. Yeah. I'm not saying that, hey, go knock on your neighbor's door and say, that whole, hey, you got 5 minutes for me to tell you about Jesus? Like, it's not like a thing these days very much. Some of that is the world is just not the same safe place that it was 50 years ago for you to go knocking on strangers' doors. So I won't knock that, but I'll say the reason why I prefer a needs-based evangelism that looks at physical needs is because it does open that door for, hey, we want to feed you physically because you might not be able to hear our message until we have taken care of that issue in your life. We can't, the ladies that are dealing with addiction issues have a hard time hearing the gospel of Jesus when they're active in addiction, but when we can minister to them through their recovery process, then the message of Jesus is easier to receive. Especially, we've been learning this in staff meetings over the last couple of weeks, this new kind of taxonomy of that we really are doing ministry in what would be considered negative world, meaning that we live in a world now that it used to be popular to be a churchgoer, have Christian values, be a pastor. Being a pastor is no longer really looked at as like a respectable thing in the current culture that we live in. being a Christian is not necessarily like we used to be the moral majority. We're not now. I'm not decrying that one bit. We're just stating the fact. That's just the absolute facts.
Yeah.
Is Western society is going more and more post-Christian, and so we now living in a world that's more antagonistic towards our faith, if we're going to say that the Bible is about loving our neighbor, before they will hear our message about Jesus dying for them to forgive them of their sins, to make them a new creation, they need to see us put our faith into action first to open up the way for it. Because it's very disingenuous to go and have a conversation with someone that's starving about eternity if you don't care about what's happening to them in the moment.
Yeah,
it's very disingenuous. They're like, whoa, wait a second, you want me to go follow a guy that was always taking care of people's needs when he came upon them?
Yeah.
But now all you're worried about is where I'm going to spend eternity?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you shouldn't care where people spend eternity. I'm just saying it's very disingenuous. Like Jesus didn't like go up to the hungry, to the beggar, or to the lame or the blind and go, hey, first, before I take care of this blindness, I'd like to know, do you believe in Jesus?
Or he
Like,
didn't
no.
strap a picket fence to, he wasn't walking around with like a picket fence with a poster on it or something.
No.
And running around in
was
circles
like,
outside of the courthouse or
He
whatever.
saw a need, he met
Yeah.
a need, and then once he met the need,
Yeah.
then he was able to take care of the other side. Right, you're healed. Now your sins are forgiven.
Yeah.
Those it's again, if you go around knocking on people's doors and you're seeing people saved, praise God for it. I'm not trying to bag on you. I'm just saying for the vast majority of people, especially if you don't feel that you're real gifted in evangelism, this will open up more natural ways for you to fulfill the Great Commission whenever you start meeting people's needs, rather than just going around going, hey, have you heard about Jesus?
Yeah.
There's some people that are really gifted at that. I'm not necessarily even one of those people that's like striking up a conversation with a person in the gas station. You probably are more gifted at that than I am.
Yeah.
But like, I can open up a faith conversation with someone when I'm helping give them food for the holidays, or they're in addiction recovery, and they, like I prayed for probably about 10 ladies from Recovery Point this past week at service.
Yeah.
I can much more naturally do stuff like that whenever I'm in the midst of some sort of needs-based situation. Whereas, so if you're nervous about evangelism, set up a grill in your neighborhood and pass out hamburgers. Have right now. This is another reason. I'm glad I just thought of that. That's definitely the Holy Spirit. The reason why our Easter outreaches have changed so much is because of this. If you want to go to an Easter egg hunt where you can easily lose your kid, there are plenty of those in the Kanawha Valley.
Yeah.
I'm talking, you want to go somewhere where there's like hundreds and thousands of people for you to get 10 little plastic eggs, and there are those events available for you.
Yeah.
We used to do one of those events. Like we literally, have we done one of the big ones since you got here?
Yeah. I mean, they've all been up here,
But
but
it was
not,
like COVID time, right? Or shortly after COVID.
So during COVID, we did the Easter egg hunt kits to take with you. You do it with your your neighbors and stuff like that. We've had a couple up here, but I've heard of some of the big ones that we used to have, where we would go down the Layton Field and they all were dropping eggs from a helicopter.
Yeah, we did one at Laley Field. 6,000 people showed up.
Ladley Field, sorry.
We've done them up here on the hill. We've had upwards of 1,500 to 2,000 people up here.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
The problem that we found with that, though, was it never impacted the growth of our church ever.
Yeah.
So it's like, 6,000 people went down to Ladley Field for a good time, but it never impacted the growth of our church whatsoever. Now, I've got a point I'll make about that. But so we changed our egg hunt to where we can go, what's a better evangelism strategy to where our people can make personal connections with people to invite them to church and to open up spiritual conversations with people in their neighborhood. So now we do neighborhood egg hunts where hopefully you will pick up one of these this weekend. There's everything you need to have an egg hunt in your neighborhood with the people that you know or that you don't know, but you want to get to know them.
Yeah.
You can offer this in your front yard. Hey, on this Saturday, the first Saturday of April, in our front yard, we're going to have, eggs, and like if you're part of a small group, your small group could do this with you. We're going to grill out hot dogs. We're just going to bless our neighbors, and as we bless our neighbors, we're getting to know our neighbors, and our neighbors, hey, what are y'all doing this for? Oh, our church is doing this. Oh, you go to church? Yeah, we go to church. Great. Would you like to come with us this Easter?
Yeah.
It's a natural, like, we're meeting a need in people's lives because people want to go and do events like that. But just truthfully, if I didn't work here, I would have never had my kids at our big Easter egg hunts ever. They are frightening. There's so many people.
Yeah.
I mean, so many people.
Yeah.
Like, we would have kids get lost. We had to have an information desk.
Yeah.
That way, if a kid got lost, they knew where they could go pick their kid up at.
Yeah.
That's not. I'm just not a fan of that.
Yeah.
I think there's a place for it, but the reason why we're doing these more controlled environments is because we think that there's probably people that would love to do an egg hunt but don't want to go around 4,000 people to do it.
Yeah.
And so this gives us a more individualized approach. Now, on the flip side of that, I do want to say this because this is a conviction that I hold. Because the question you asked, ask the question again.
How can we make sure that we're meeting people's needs that lead to genuine faith rather than social work?
Yeah. So I will also challenge the premise of that question as something that I really deeply hold. And that's, as a follower of Jesus, you've been made into a new creation, and you are tasked with spreading the things of new creation wherever you go.
Yeah.
And you should do that whether that ever results in another person saying yes to Jesus or not. So it is a net positive for the created order when the people of Jesus go and do good deeds, whether that results in your church growing or not. Mm. So that's the other side of it is, yes, we stopped doing the big egg hunts because we felt like we could be more effective in another place, not necessarily because it didn't populate our church.
Yeah.
But if you are like I don't know that we have any families that come to our church because of the food boxes that we do. And I am okay with that.
Yes.
Because taking care of the needs of others is part of new creation.
Yeah.
When they have what they need, that's a little glimpse of new creation that points them to their Creator that loves them. And whether our church ever benefits from that or not is not the reason why we do it.
Yep.
See, a lot of people will only want to do evangelism to make sure that they get more butts in their seats and more bucks in their offering plates. If that's your purpose in ministry and evangelism, you're missing the point.
Yeah.
You should want to go and bless your community because that's what you've been called to do, not because it's some lame church growth strategy that goes, hey, if you have a big Easter egg hunt, your church will grow by 20% this Easter.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? Because I'm not saying nobody ever showed up because of an Easter egg hunt, but they didn't last long.
Yeah.
Because eventually they have to get anchored in by something. And at the end of the day, 6,000 people down at Laidley Field, not one person that I'm aware of showed up at our church as a result of that. And I'll defend it to this day. It was still the right thing to do because we showed 6,000 people the love of Jesus. And we don't know. Maybe they ended up at churches down in Charleston, or maybe they just have a more favorable view of God for him to move in their life later on.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. We did what we felt like God was calling us to do. And I remember the year after that, we were going through some pastoral transition and such, and we had elders here that were really critical of that event, as if it was like that event didn't matter because nobody ever came to church. And I go, I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
I think doing the things of new creation, bringing happiness and joy and beauty and restoration and forgiveness and all of these and fullness and taking care of needs, I think it's a good thing for the church to do, whether the church ever benefits from it or not.
Sometimes we get so caught up in wanting to be the planter of the seed, the nurturer of the plant, and then the harvester.
Exactly.
And the scripture talks about, look, like we are just called to scatter the seed, and then it's up to
100%.
That's our job. That's what we're called to do, is we're called to plant the seed. Now, if we do see that the harvest is ready and then God asks us to do it, then yes, we are going to be doing it. But our job is to plant the seed. And like you said, who's to say that someone from these larger events is not open to having a relationship with Jesus whenever, the things in their life just seem to be falling apart.
100%.
And they're more receptive because they remembered that one time that someone said, hey, you know what? I just want to let you know it's really good to see you today, and Jesus loves you. We hope that you have a wonderful time today picking up Easter eggs.
That's why we do the University of Charleston dinners.
Yeah.
Because we've had people challenge us on that. What benefit does that have to the church? It doesn't benefit the church. Your evangelism strategy is not supposed to benefit the church.
Yeah.
That's like tit for tat type thing. Like, oh, well, we're only going to bless our community so the way God will bless our church. No. If we're Christians, we go out and we do the work of ministry no matter whether or not we benefit from it or not. Like Jesus says, even sinners do good to people that can do good back for them.
Yeah.
Like, don't be so arrogant to think that non-believers don't understand that you're trying to put a hook in their mouth when you're giving away an iPad.
Yeah.
Like, and going, well, we're going to get you plugged into our church, and then we're going to get you to tithe, and at the end of the day, you're going to be paying for that iPad.
Yeah.
They know when you're trying to set them up for that, and then they also know when you're being genuine, where he goes, listen, we don't expect anything from you.
Yeah.
We're just a group of people here that love Jesus. You're always welcome to join us, but we're going to continue to bless this community whether you all show up ever or not. We do that for the University of Charleston guys, not because they'll go, well, how many of them come to church? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. Even though some of them have, some of their coaches have. We just dedicated Coach Quinn's baby a couple weeks ago. And now he's already moved somewhere else. It doesn't matter. I guarantee that next place he goes, he's going to be plugged into a church, and he wasn't plugged into a church before all of this.
I was just going to say that. It
doesn't matter. All of those players that come through, even D2 has transfer portal. Some of those guys are only here for a year. But here's what I know. When they're 35 years old and they've got a wife and 3 kids and all hell is breaking loose in their life, there's a good chance that at least one of them is going to remember that there was a Jesus-loving group of people called the church that loved them and fed them dinner and was nice to them and showed up at their football games, that no matter where they live in the world at that moment, they will always know that Jesus' church is a safe place for them to go to when they are in need. Yeah. That's why that dinner matters.
Yeah, and another one of the byproducts of something like that is, like you said, like we had an assistant coach that was coming here that was kind of like our door to get in that. But every single head coach that the University of Charleston has become an attender and really gotten plugged in with what's happening at the church. And so there's another byproduct of that is I guarantee you that the way that he was leading his teammates had some Jesus in it. And so it's another way that new creation is spreading, even though they might not understand that at the moment.
Exactly.
Like you said, they're going to go, man, you know what? I know Coach Quinn said that this was his church, and I remember that one church that was feeding us. And I do remember, like, they were always so nice, and they were trying to get to know us. And
you're giving them a favorable view of the kingdom of God.
And
Jesus' people, no matter what the news has to say about us, are actually good, decent people that when I don't know what to do in life, I can go find a local church that I know those people will love me and care for me. It's the same thing like with Recovery Point. These ladies they're not just from Charleston.
Yeah, they're all over the state.
All over the
sometimes
state.
In Ohio.
Other states. And so they'll come here, they'll go through the program, they'll get saved, they'll get baptized, then we'll never see them again. And I know that there have been people that will challenge to go, well, I mean, only a couple of them are still here at the church after they go to the program. Yeah, but you don't realize that these ladies are in churches all over the state when they go home.
Yeah.
Like we are
but not only that,
other churches through that ministry because, again, it doesn't matter if we are the sole recipient of what is going on. We know that those ladies are in churches all over the place, and whether it's this church or not, same with those football players. We don't have to be the direct recipient of it. We are simply finding needs and meeting needs.
Yeah.
Like I told the church that I worked with down south, I said, why don't you find out I said, actually, you already know. What is the number one issue you think is plaguing your community right now? They said, we have a large number of grandparents who are raising their grandchildren because their parents are caught up in drugs, whether they've overdosed and passed away, whether they're just living an addicted lifestyle and lost their kids, or whether they're in prison. We have an epidemic where we're at of grandparents raising their kids that do not feel adequately equipped to parent in 2025.
Yeah.
Since it's been 30 years since they were a parent.
Yeah.
I said, all right, so that's the number one issue in your area. That's the number one issue. I said, all right, here's what you do. Advertise that you are going to have a seminar for grandparents to understand technology to keep the kids that they are overseeing safe.
Yeah.
You find the need. Grandparents are like, man, these kids got tablets and iPads and all this, and they don't have a clue how to keep them safe on the internet.
Yep.
Offer a workshop for your community that offers that. Brings them into the church. They meet all these good Jesus people and go, hey, what you're going through is really difficult right now. No pressure, but we are here if you need us.
Yeah.
That's all it takes. Just that little bit of intentionality, because maybe they're like, oh, I've got a good idea. Let's have a hot dog. Let's give away hot dogs.
Yeah.
All right, what's the purpose? What needs it meeting? Well, we just want to meet some people to invite them to church. No. See, that sounds like a cheap church growth strategy. Give away hot dogs so we can invite people to church. Find out what the pain point is and go and help them in their pain point. Oh, we got grandparents that don't know how to use an iPhone. Yeah. Offer a technology class. Offer a parenting as a grandparent class. You can find all of this stuff on the internet for free, or you can put up a little bit of money and host and bring in an expert.
Yeah.
Somebody somewhere in your county knows what they're doing on these different topics. So like if you could run, I could run right now if we felt like we needed to find something new to do. I could go and run a demographic study on our community. And let's say that we find out that we're living in an area that has an unbelievable amount of single moms. Okay, that information would then equip us to go, all right, we need to do something for single moms. Or maybe we find out that we have a large group of people that do not speak English as their primary language in our area, because the demographics will get that granular if you want it to.
Yeah.
Okay, you can offer English as a second language at your church to help bless people in your community. Just go find out what the issues are and then offer programming around them to help solve those problems, and it will open up gospel conversations and all that. But also realize your job is simply obedience. God's job is the outcome.
Yeah.
So if you're obedient to whatever he's put in front of you, whether or not they ever show up at church or ever give their lives to Jesus, that's not on you. You be obedient. You let God deal with the outcomes. And don't do ministry in a way that you're always trying to get something from somebody else. Because people can sniff that out. They can see. But be genuine. Like, I actually want to help you, whether or not you ever do anything for me. Yeah. That's the essence of needs-based ministry.
Now, what about, because we talked about, the church as a whole, is there a way for individuals who are connected with the church, and obviously they've bought into the mission, vision, and values of the church and wanting to help partnership, because they are an extension of the church, is there a way for maybe individuals feel, called to help out, but it's just maybe on an individual level? Does that, and I think this kind of ties in with maybe some more of the relationship side of things, because it's a lot easier to have those conversations about Jesus on a relationship level. Because if I just met you at Walmart and you came up to me and you just said, hey, can I talk to you about Jesus?
I know people do that, but that's so off-putting, unless you're really gifted at it.
Yeah. Can you approach it sometimes on an individual side, and is it mainly, I guess, based off of just because of the relationship that you have with that individual?
Yeah.
Because I do know that there are some people that are really, really gifted with relationship building and friends, and having those people in a major part of their lives outside of the church. And I guess meeting the need is just because they are an extension of what we do here at the church. How do they approach that? I mean, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I'm trying to get there, but my mind is failing me.
I think what you're trying to the church is meant to be the training ground for how we go and live our lives day to day. So if the church is doing needs-based evangelism in your own personal life, you need to be doing needs-based evangelism as well. So you participate in the needs-based evangelism that the church has going on as a means by which being trained up to go and do it in your neighborhood. So, for instance, if you're doing needs-based evangelism at church, you're like, man, I got to do this in my neighborhood as well. Okay, then you're going to be more intentional about meeting the people in your neighborhood, and you're going to go, all right, well, that lady down at the end of the block, that's a single mom, so that's an opportunity. There's a senior citizen that lives 2 houses down. That's an opportunity. All this, and so you start looking at it like that, and you go, okay, there's some open doors. I'm going to ask her to come over for dinner sometime. That way there's one night of the week that she doesn't have to cook because we know that she's on her own. Yeah. And then for that senior citizen couple that, they're elderly, their grass is going to need mown. Yeah. And he's past the age of being able to do it, and they're on a fixed income, so paying someone to do it has become an issue. Perfect. I can go down there and mow their grass. Yeah. Right. Like once you get to know them, then you can begin to meet needs in their life. Like you find, you meet a couple across the street. They got 3 kids. Hey,
doesn't have to be something as elaborate as packing 100 food boxes for the kids at school.
No, it's like you met a family that lives across the road. Their kids just started T-ball, but they don't have enough money to take care of 3 gloves, but you've got an extra glove in your garage. Yeah. So go give them the glove. Yeah. Right? Like the more conversations you have to find out about needs, the more you're able to actually just step in it. And this is actually like what following Jesus looks like. Yeah. It's like, this is all I'm trying to do in life. I'm not saying I excel in this, but that's all I'm trying to do is like, where are our needs at? And I don't care to go and do that, right? Like, there was one time our men's group, we were told about a family that the kids needed school shoes. Yeah. Our men's group immediately was like, yeah, we'll take care of that. That's not an issue. Right? We're just finding when someone says, oh, man, this so-and-so, I was talking to someone this past week. They've got some housework that needs done. Yeah. I said, hey, listen, holler at us. Yeah. We got people here that will come and help you. Yeah. We want to help you. Mm-hmm. That's as a pastor, that's a lot of the stuff that we do. Like, we find out what's going on in our people's lives. We go, all right, well, I'm coming to help, I'll send someone to help, or I'll pay for help, or whatever we got to do. Like, we want to know about your needs. And we can do that as a church. We can do that in our individual lives. We can do that with, this is one of the reasons why I'm so involved in sports, is I get to know so many people because of it, and then I get to know their situations, and then that gives me opportunity to step in and help in all kinds of different ways. Yeah,
Dad's working late on this specific day. Mom's car is broken down or whatever. Hey, can we get a ride? And it's just like, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'll
give you a ride. I've done that multiple times to get connected to families. We give kids rides home. I've given equipment away to people. Yeah. I've waived team fees for people. Like, I whatever. If I'm aware of it, then I can do something about it. That's one of those things why sports is so important to me, is because I'm not like real good about just striking up conversations with strangers. Yeah. When I'm in this situation now, I can become aware of ways that I can go and bless other people that I might not otherwise get those, get that information. So I think it's really just putting into practice the way of Jesus. Like, he saw needs and he met them. You should do it at church. You should do it at home. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. Some of the other questions I had that you answered through some of the other ones. How did Jesus model need-oriented evangelism in his ministry? Is like that was
right in front of him.
That was the first thing that he saw, was like, what's their need, and then we'll tackle the spiritual stuff. And then another one was, what practical steps can a church take to start implementing this approach today? Yeah.
And if you want to know more about Mission Insight, like if you're a pastor or you go to a church and you're like, man, that would really help, holler at me. I can get you help out with Mission Insight, which is that website that will do demographic studies on the area that you're in. Yeah. And you can find out what people are doing in your area. You can find out, median income. You can find out languages. You can find out marital status, things that, like, you can find out all kinds of information. Yeah. Easier way, just go get plugged in at your local school. Yeah. Be a presence at your local school and tell them, hey, listen, when something comes up, I want to know.
Yeah.
Right? Like we saw, just one final story. We saw one of our partner schools, Alum Creek.
Mm-hmm.
One year, they wanted to put, what is that stuff called? Like in a lot of elementary schools, they'll have like these walkways in their hallways that have all these different activities on them to help shake energy out of kids.
Yeah.
And we saw that they were wanting to do that, but they didn't have the funds to do it. We were like, count us in. It was like $300.
Oh yeah.
So we paid for that because that was going to bless the teachers, because the teachers were like, if the kids had this sort of walkway, it will help have a higher quality of learning, a better day. Perfect. We paid for it. There was another time they were doing school T-shirts, and they needed someone to sponsor the school T-shirts. I saw it on Facebook. Messaged the principal, hey, whatever you don't raise, we'll cover the rest of it.
Yeah.
Just fine. Like, because we're plugged into the local school, now all of a sudden we can help.
Yeah.
Like we can go, oh, the kid, like we got a kid that doesn't have a backpack. Cool. I got 400, 500 people up here.
Yeah.
I'll find you a backpack.
Yeah.
If I know about it, I can help about it.
Yeah.
Like we can't help everybody, but we can. This is old Andy Stanley thing. We will do for one what we wish we could do for everyone.
Yeah.
If we know about it. Yeah.
Good stuff. I'm excited. I'm excited about this mystery meat question.
This is my needs base would be, you know what? The mystery meat is not for Scott. That's his need.
All right. In case you've never joined us before, mystery meat questions, just like the mystery meat at a potluck.
Never know what it's going to be.
Never know what it's going to be. And sometimes it turns out a fantastic question. Sometimes it's complete nonsense.
As far as mystery meat is concerned, at potlucks and on this potluck podcast, I never like it. So
yeah. You know, it's funny. This is how the conversations at my house go, because I was asked this question by my wife earlier this week on Monday, actually.
A jar question you were asked in real life?
In real life.
Oh,
and this is going to make you scratch your head.
Okay.
If you were a kitchen appliance, which one would you be and why? I know.
All right, let's skip me answering that and you answer this. Why did your wife ask you that?
So I didn't answer it because I was laughing too hard, because Luke chimed in and he goes, I would be a meat pounder. And
what kind of conversations are y'all having that led to you being asked this?
We've implemented just stupid questions to ask each other, just because we like to laugh at our responses. And
did you say kitchen utensil or appliance?
Appliance. And that's what I told Luke. I was like, that's a utensil,
dog.
But yeah, it was just the way that Luke was laughing at the end of it. He's got like one of those contagious laughs. It's very high pitched and it's very sporadic.
I don't want to be a kitchen appliance. I'm trying to think. I don't want to be a dishwasher because I don't like washing dishes.
Yeah.
Being a stove seems like it would be really hot.
Yeah. Well, anything cook. I mean, are you going to be a coffee machine?
That would be fun to try. Like you would get to hold a bunch of different coffees. I was thinking fridge.
Yeah,
would be fun just to hold all the food, but it'd be cold.
People are constantly putting food in you.
Yeah, I like that aspect, but the being cold aspect, I would not like that. Coffee pot, yeah, that'd be fun.
That'd be good.
Like in some way, if it's still me as the coffee pot, I would have to be able to taste it. So
yeah,
I'm down with that. Say coffee pot.
Yeah, I mean, if it's supposed to be a direct reflection of my life. Just because my humor is this, I would probably be a dehydrator. It's pretty dry.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why she asked this question. I don't know why it came up today, but,
that is bad luck.
Yeah, I felt about the same whenever Erica asked me this question, and I was just like, I don't want to answer this. Anyways, but I don't know about y'all, but I've really appreciated this, and we've got some because of this. It's kind of sparked some ideas about some future conversations that we're going to have after we are wrapping up our natural church development conversation, because there there are some things that are happening in our community that we do need to talk about, and I'm looking forward to those conversations.
Yes.
And how does from this conversation, how does this narrate our conversations moving forward? Because this is tackling a lot of information and opening our eyes to a lot of different things as a church. And how do we implement this moving forward to where we continue to talk about these things, and how do we continue to make sure that we're a healthy church and we're not just sitting around talking about what's our favorite ice cream and stuff like that. And I'm appreciating just the thoughts and ideas that are coming out of this, because anybody can sit around and talk about ice cream and our favorite Little Debbie's and stuff like that. But how do we go deeper in our relationship, and how do we challenge people to do that as well, to where it's a direct reflection on how healthy our church is spiritually. But thank you all so much for joining today. We'll see you next week as we continue our conversation on natural church development. If you have any questions about any of these topics before we get into our episodes, we can tackle them for you if you need a little bit more insight. But thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next Friday.
Thank you so much for listening in with us today. We really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram. And you can also watch the video version of this on YouTube as well. All you have to do is search up the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. From all of us here, we want to say thank you, and we'll see you next week.